will extend the capabilities of all the child class, right? Sorry, child class will extend the capability of all the parent class, right? It's kind of making the parent class and child class as a single entity, right? Whatever the objects or methods you have in your parent class can be reused in your child class, and you can give some definitions in your parent class which you can override in your child class, and you have some or few methods which are related to parent class in the parent class itself, and few methods which are related to child class in the child class itself. It is like being one but not being the same, right? So we saw an example also. We have this employee class which is having this integer and string variables or objects. We have this method, and we have this engineering employee. Even though employee and engineering employee are this kind of fitting into this employee category, this engineering employee is kind of an implementation to the employee class. Okay. So that is the major difference. There is a, even though engineering employee and employee are the same entity, they are a lot different. Engineering employee is a specific implementation of the employee class. So only what are the things which are belonging to employee, like employee ID and employee name comes in the employee class. What are specific implementations of that? What are the role, years of experience, and these are specific entities related to this engineering employee, right? Or the properties which is specific only to the engineering employee, right? So those comes inside this engineering employee class. We also saw what is what how to create a one more class and extend the same employee class, right? We saw that that is also possible in Java. We can have two child class which can extend from one base class. It can have one base class or parent class. So again, the same thing applies over here. All the properties are inherited, which are public and protected or inherited into this marketing employee. And how we can test this? We also saw that, right? We can have this engineering employee object here, and whenever we try to access anything, we have both employee and engineering employee objects for us to do some operations over it. What are the fields that will be available? The fields which are public and protected, that will be available, not the private fields, right? So far so clear, right? Okay, today we'll see the continuation of this.
Karthik,
Yes.
before you move ahead, I have a question with regarding the overrides. Okay,
Okay.
so it happens only yeah, with the parent-child relation, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
right, when we can only do an inheritance. So when
Mhm.
we do override any method, okay,
Mhm.
so it happens from the child to parent or within the child. Means within the child class, or it's from child class to parent class.
Okay. What happens is like overriding is you have the same method name in your parent and as well as in child. So when you do an override and run that particular method or call that particular method from the parent class, instead of parent class method in the parent class, that is called method in the child class, that will be called. For example, I have a parent class here. I have a method called ABC, something like this is a method name, and I have a child class which also has a method called ABC, right? So at the runtime, what happens? I will create some object of the parent class, right? I will create an object parent p is equal to new. We'll do something here. in the calling the constructor part. Once you do that, we'll come to that part while explaining that. Once you call p dot abc like this, so we will expect the parent class method to be called, right? Instead of the child class method will be called. That is called overriding. It is from parent to child. So we are overriding the parent class method with the child class method, and the child class method only will be called instead of parent class. I hope I wasn't confusing.
Yeah, but one other like the continuity with that part. Okay,
Mhm,
so here we are creating an object for the parent class, right?
mhm, mhm,
So if we create an object for the child class,
mhm.
so the ABC of child class will be called, right? If you are trying to access the ABC,
Yes, yes, yes. So
right?
that is called overriding, right? Because
Yeah,
yeah, basic concept of overriding is like you override whatever is in the parent class and provide the implementation which is in the child class. That is the meaning of
yeah,
over.
yeah. That's what I was. So now it's clear. So we override from child to parent, right?
I see override from child to parent is confusing. What I will say like in this manner, I have a parent class method, child class method. I will execute the child class method instead of parent class method.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Okay. We will see this overriding also today. So before moving to that, we all are familiar with this kind of object creation, right? Uh, Engineering employee, even though it extends, it has a constructor. Okay, let's remove this constructor also for time being. So we are constructor with this, right? We have this particular object, string and integer, and we are having one method to print all these things. So as we saw in the example yesterday, I can put an employee ID here, which is of type employee because we are extending the employee from the engineering employee class. Uh, Sorry, it's protected and public objects are available. Now both are protected. Engineering employee name and employee ID are protected. So that is available inside this engineering employee. So if we create object for this engineering employee, employee ID and employee name are available. And the objects which are specific to engineering employee class is also available like a role and years of experience. Right? So if I try to access the method, both the print employee details and engineering employee details is also available. It has the respective methods of employee class and engineering employee class, right? Let's try to run this program. So now it's printed, right? What method is called? Method inside this employee class is called print employee details. Method is in employee class, right? So if you want to print method in the engineering employee class, then I can do something like this. And if I execute, now that is called and it is executed. So now we also saw one more thing like how to use the super keyword to call the base class or parent class objects, right? Super dot that field name or super dot that method name calls a parent class methods or objects. So one thing I wanted to show here is like, see, I have in this child class, I have this protected, right? Engineering employee, this role is protected actually. So protected has one particular use case where you have your child class, and whatever you declare protected in your parent class will come into your child class. That is a role of protected, right? Now this itself is protected, which this role which is available in child class, that is also protected. Now what is the use of declaring something as protected here? I'm not extending this engineering employee elsewhere. And what is the use of this protected here? Can anyone say? You got my question right, everyone? Hello?
Yeah, Karthik.
In the employee class, if I declare protected, that makes some sense because in engineering employee, it is extending that employee. So the protected variables are available here. What is the use of declaring something protected here? If I don't extend this class elsewhere.
Hope it helps for not to alter anything.
Okay, it's not that. Protected has one more use case actually. I'll show that in a while. For example, this particular employee, engineering employee, all available in this package called the inheritance, right? So what I'm doing, uh, even though this test class is a separate class from this engineering employee, this main method is already in the class called test. I'm able to access this particular field called role here, even though it is protected because it's in the same package. Okay. So I have this different package called initial here. I have this automobile class here, right? What if I try to create the object for this engineering employee inside this automobile class? Let's try to do this. Somewhere here. You can create an object. If we try to, let's try to copy paste this line as well. Engineering dot role is equal to tester. Now it's throwing an error, right? The field is not visible. So again, it is expecting to be declared as public. Now that error is gone, right? So protected, one more use case is like protected variables are limited to the package scope. So once it is out of package, then the visibility is gone. So if you want to use a class variables or methods out of your package, then it should be declared as public only. So that's the point.
So you meant to say the variable declaration and the method declaration with the protected. It's generally the visibility is class and with its subclass and within the package, right?
Yes, yes, yes,
So maybe it's maybe variable also, right?
yes, yes. Right.
Okay, thanks.
So once it is out of the package, then public is only accessible, not protected or private. So that's the whole point here. Okay. Now we'll come to another important concept. So how we are setting this field variables here, right? Every time we call this object an object dot that employee ID, name, role, and years of experience. So in our previous sessions, we saw one other method of initializing an objects or variables inside a class. What is that method? Instead of direct doing like this one by one, we saw one other method, right? So why can't we do that with the constructor itself, right? That is also possible, right? And you here with me, right? Everyone can respond in chat also. Hello. Am I audible?
Yeah, Karthik, you're audible.
Okay. So instead of doing explicitly like this, why can't I initialize through the constructor itself? So I can create a constructor for this. So what's the syntax for declaring a constructor? Public, the class name. Instead of default constructor, I'm going to create a constructor with arguments. I'll put this constructor here after variable declaration. Constructor with arguments, string, role, int, years of experience, right? So I can say this dot role. We all saw this previously, right? These previous things. And this dot years of experience is equal to this one, right? So now it is easy to call this constructor and initialize this roles and years of experience uh, in the calling. I mean, at the time of creating this object itself, right? Instead of doing this 3 and my name here, sorry, instead of roles and years of experience, right? Instead of doing this here, I can put this in the constructor. I can put the role as tester here and years of experience as 8 here. Now I can safely remove these two lines. Let's try to run this program now. So again, things are coming, right? Role is tester, years of experience is 8, role ID is 3, and the name is my name. Right? Now, if you notice one thing, the variables which are available inside this engineering employee class or set through this constructor. What about the variables which are available inside this employee class, like this employee ID and employee name? We are explicitly defining this again. So why we have to do this explicitly again? There should be some method to do it, right, without explicitly specifying it by calling the constructor. So there is a method to do that actually. So what you can do is like inside this child class constructor itself, you can have two more fields for this employee ID and employee name. Int emp ID and string emp name, right? So what you can do, you just can use a super keyword here again to call the constructor of the base class. Right? I can just say super. I have to create a constructor here for that. Well, you just create a constructor, public employee int string name, right? Again, the same case, this dot. So we can do something like this. And in our child class, what we can do, we can just call super of employee ID an employee name. Just give me a second. Oh, sorry. This constructor call must be always the first statement in the constructor. That is one criteria. So what happens here is like uh, you pass this particular, you call this particular constructor with 4 arguments actually. Uh, this role, years of experience, employee and employee name. You just do a super. So here super means the parent class constructor will be called with whatever details we fill in. We fill in the employee ID and employee name that comes here, and this employee ID and employee name will be set in the parent class through the child class by calling the super, and this role and years of experience of this child class is also set. Now what we can do, you can safely remove these things just by calling that constructor of the child class, right? I can call this and I can safely remove this also, right? So if I try to run this again, so now the results are same, right? I have setted this values employee ID and employee name which belongs to this employee class through the child class itself, which is the engineering employee, through the constructor by using this super keyword. So that is the main idea. So are we clear until now? What is a super constructor, how we are setting these values of the parent class through the child class itself by calling the super constructor? Can everyone post this in chat?
Hardik, can you explain once again?
Okay. So I have this parent class which has 2 variables, employee ID and employee name. I have this constructor. I have this method, and I again have an engineering employee class which extends this employee. Engineering employee has 2 separate objects for itself, which is called roles and years of experience. And what happens here, like whenever I create an engineering employee object, I can access these 2 variables also, employee and employee name, because we are extending this class from engineering employee. So before this we used to set all these values explicitly, right? engg dot employee ID is equal to 3, engg dot years of experience is equal to role is equal to tester and all. So instead of doing that explicitly, setting this value explicitly through the object, we are going to set these through the constructor of the child class itself, right? So how we are going to do, uh, we know we can pass arguments to the constructor and set the variables at the runtime. So here we have to set 2 classes variables. One is employee class and another one is engineering employee class. Engineering employee class setting is simple. We can just get this value and say this dot role is called role. It will assign this role value will be assigned to here, and this dot years of experience is equal to years of experience, right? So whatever comes as a value in this argument is will be setted here. What about this parent class objects, integer, employee ID and string? To set those from the child class itself, we use a term called super, and we call the super constructor. Whenever you go like this, right? See, whenever you click on this and you say open declaration. Declaration means where it is declared. It will go to this employee class only, because this is a super class for engineering employee. Super class in the sense it's parent class for engineering employee. Again, we pass two arguments: employee ID, employee name. From where? From the engineering employee class itself, from the constructor. Uh, by something denotation, something like this, super of what arguments you wanted to pass. I want to pass employee ID and employee name, which I got from the arguments of the constructor. I'm calling this. So now this constructor will be executed. These two values will be set. Employee ID and name will be set. And now we are done. All the four variables are set. If we call this print method, it will print all the details. So basic idea is like we are setting all these values through the constructor itself. So are we clear?
Yeah, Karthik, thank you.
Okay. And similar case, what happens if we create an object for employee in now? I have to pass two variables, right? Let's say employee is 4 and employee name is Raja. Or let's do something like this. So now what will be the output of this program? What about other people like Sakshi, Vinay, Dibyanchal? Can you say now what is the output of this program when I call this particular line, when this particular line is executed? I hope people didn't join Zoom and left there.
I hope everyone is here.
Even I hope that.
Okay. Okay, Karthik, I think I'll go with that.
Okay.
I think we have two methods which is calling in the prior to this object called. I think those two will be executed. Then it comes to this section of, sorry, beg your pardon. Yeah, it gives you the object method first, and then comes to those two methods.
Okay. This print employee details method has we are printing employee ID and employee name, right? So I just wanted to understand, after execution of this step, what will be the printed? What values will be printed? You can see this on same as well. This print method we are calling here. We are printing the employee details are an employee ID and employee name, right? So this will be called. I just wanted to understand, after this line number 16 is executed, what will be printed in the console?
It will be 3 and my name, if I'm right.
Yes, it is 3 in mining. Because we are again calling this object's values which are set through this object, right? 3 and mining. We are not calling emp.print employee details, right? So to emphasize this point only, I was asking this question. If we do something like this, it is whole different object. Now 4 and Raja are printed. So that's the difference which I wanted to say. Sakshi, I hope you got this. Okay. So now things are going to get little trickier. Now we are clear with the engineer employee. We are creating an object. We are able to access this employee details also, engineering employee details also. And if we clear this employee object, we are only able to access this employee details object only. I can access only this employee ID and employee name. I cannot access this role and years of experience, because this employee is not extending engineering employee. Only this engineering employee is extending the employee. That's the difference. Okay. Now where the things are getting trickier is we'll delete this. We'll comment this part. I can do something like this also. I can create an object for employee, emp is equal to new engineering employee, and I can pass role as tester, years of experience as some 7, employee ID as 3, and employee name as some random name, right? So I can do something like this also, right? I have this parent class and I have this object for this parent class, but I am calling the constructor of this child class. It will be confusing at the beginning. I hope you stick with me. Everyone getting the point here, right? Until now, what we saw, if you want to create an object for any class, what is the basic syntax? What is the basic syntax of creating an object? Class name, object name is equal to new class name, right? Class name or constructor name, everything is the same. We are calling the constructor, open close brackets, and we do something like this, right? But when we are extending some class, or when we are using the properties of inheritance, we can do something like this also. Parent class name, object name, new child class name, child name or child class constructor, right? This is also possible. So what is the use of doing is like, this is where the overriding comes into picture. We'll see overriding shortly, but understand that this is also possible in Java. We can create object like this, but we can create object like this only by extending this child class from the parent class. If this extend keywords is not there, it will not work. We'll try to delete this. Now it's throwing an error, right? Only because of that extends keyword, we are able to do something like this. So when we try to access something here, so what I'm able to access, I'm able to access only the employee ID and employee name details, right? And if I go to the print statement also, I am able to print only the employee details here. So for example, if I'm running this program, I can only see this method being called. What is that method? This employee details method, where only I print employee ID and employee name, right? I cannot access the details of engineering employee other than this constructor setting. For example, I'm just printing something in this constructor here. So if I try to run this, so the child class constructor is called, what is the child class? Engineering employee, right? That constructor is called, so we are able to verify it through this sysout statement. But we are not able to access anything with respect to child, right? Only this employee ID and employee name are available, role is not available, you see. And what is even the use case of something doing something like this? So this is where overriding comes into picture. Overriding is something like you have the same method, sorry, you have the same method in the base class also present in the child class as well. For example, instead of this print engineering employee details, what I'm going to change this method to this employee details itself. Print employee details. So now if you can see here, it is showing some kind of message here, right? Overrides inheritance. Right? What I can do to move to make this more specific, I can use this at override annotation also. So which means I'm overriding this base class method and giving a new definition for this through the derived class, right? What's the new definition? I'm going to print something extra here. That's a new definition which I'm going to give. So when I say override, it means that it is overriding. Override is means what? I override some values. I change some values so that the new values are going to set as final for those. Right. Now here I'm overriding the method itself. So whatever execution, whatever is command in this particular thing is now overridden. This sysout is overridden with these values. Now if I try to print this, run this program. Now you can see the method for the child class, that is engineering employee class, is called instead of this base class method, right? To differentiate, I'll just use base here, and I will just use child here. I run this. So the child method is only called, right? Even though this object is belonging to this parent class, only the child method is called because we overrided the base class method in the child class. So everyone got this, or I wanted to go through it again?
Karthik, you mentioned that while we create an object for the child class, okay, using that. So you said there is a use case.
Yeah, this is the use case. Overriding is the use case.
Okay.
So only for purpose of overriding, we are doing something like this. So what about others? Others are clear? Okay. So I can do something similar in marketing employee also, right? Marketing employee which extends this employee. I'll add a constructor here. I'll place this constructor below. I have employee ID, employee name. This constructor is automatically generated by our IDE, right? So I can pass two more arguments for setting this child class, role and years of experience for this marketing employee class. Sorry. Now I can again do the same thing here. What I'll do, okay, I'll create one more object of employee. I'll call this emp1 is equal to new. Now instead of engineering employee, I can say marketing employee. An employee ID is some 100. Employee name is some, let's say, role is marketer. Years of experience is 5. Now take a note at this employee method, print employee details. And in this marketing employee, I have something like this print marketing employee details with some print out statement. Now, if I call this emp1 dot print employee, so now what will be printed? Can anyone say now what will be printed when line number 22 is executed?
Karthik, can you just go back to the child class?
Marketing employee, right?
Yeah. Can I see where the super is taking up? Once, is it going to the same employee, the super constructor? Can you just come back to the marketing ones?
Marketing employee. Okay.
Now the test, please.
If line number
It's two different objects, right?
yes, yes.
So you get both the printed.
Okay, okay. My question is like only line number 22. What is printed in this statement? What is printed?
It prints you the data which you provided at the marketing object, the employee one object.
Yes. So it will print only the employee ID and employee name, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. So if I wanted to call this particular child class method, then what I should do? What change I should do here? What is that one change I should do here?
You can override.
Yeah, to override, I have to again change this method name to whatever available in the parent class, right? Now, if we try to run this, so it's printing the marketing details. The method from the marketing class is called. So we clear, right?
Can you explain this last line, Karthik? I didn't get it.
Which last line? This one?
Yeah, after overriding, how come the marketer and 5 is being printed?
Okay. After overriding is what? We are overriding this parent class method
Yeah.
in the child class, right? So whatever at the runtime, even though the object belongs to this parent class employee, the child class method is called once the method names are same. So what happens when we execute this line, the child class method is called print employee details.
Hmm.
This method is called, and whatever inside this method is executed. Here we are only printing the marketing employee details, roles and years of experience.
Okay, okay.
So now this role, marketer and years of
Okay.
experience 5 is printed.
Okay.
I can do something like this also. So this is what I wanted to emphasize. Now what we are doing here, we are having this child class method, print employee details. But what if I wanted to print the employee ID and employee name also, uh, or for any matter calling some methods in the parent class? Like I can just use super dot that method name to call that method, right? Once if super keyword is here useful because both the method names are same. Let's try to run this without the super keyword. I think this will lead to an error because why okay, why it is leading to an error? This error is called stack overflow error, right? So everyone is aware of that stack overflow website. It is a very famous site where you can post questions and you can get the answers, tech answers, right? You aware, right, everyone? It's kind of a
Yes,
bible
Karthik.
for, yeah, it's kind of bible for developers. So why it's called stack overflow error? Because can you say this, why the stack overflow error is okay? I'll explain what is stack overflow error. Stack overflow error is something like where the every Java program that will execute will go in sit in a space called stack memory inside our computer. So once that memory is full, then it will say stack overflow error. I cannot, hey boss, I cannot go and execute further for you because I'm full already, like that. Why this stack overflow error is coming here? Can anyone say? What I'm doing here, I'm just calling this method print employee details, which is going to call this because we have overridden. Now what is happening here?
You're calling the same method
Yes, again, infinite loop, right? So it creates some infinite number of space in our reserved in our memory, stack memory, for this particular method called print employee details. We also saw this stack memory in a recursion, right? Every time we call a recursive function again and again, uh, there is some problem which is happening. There is because once you start to execute that method, the method execution is placed in some area called stack memory. So this method is called over and over again and again by this method itself, and there is no base condition to terminate the loop, so it leads to stack overflow error. So if I use super, then our Java will know, okay, I'm not trying to execute this method, I'm just trying to execute the super method, that is the method which is available in the employee class, that which is going to be called only once. So once that is executed, then I can see only one thing called base employee details and marketing employee details. What if I have one more method here? Um, let's say I have a public return type is string. Um, I'll just say print combined, or just say give. I just return so I can return some string like this, and inside this particular method I'll just remove this. I can use a string object here, string result equal to super dot. I can call this method, right? I can call this method without the super keyword also, because this doesn't have any kind of naming what confusions, right? This give combined details is kind of a unique name which is available both in employee and marketing employee class, so I don't have any ambiguity over there. So if I try to print this result, I'll get whatever that is present here, employee details are, right? Just try to run this program. Maybe I'll just give this combine employee details. I'll try to run this. So I can see this output, right? Combine employee details. So getting the whole point here, right? I can, in this particular thing, I don't have to explicitly specify super, because it is already only one method that is available in the super class. It will make use, but super keyword is optional. It gives you more clarity. Okay, what you're trying to do, I am just calling the super method here, or parent class method. It gives you more clarity. In that way, using that super keyword makes more sense. The results are same, right? The results are same. What if I change this particular method to protect it? Again, the results are same, right? I don't have see any error here. I can run this, results are same. And once I turn this particular method to private, then the problem happens, right? I cannot call this method because the private methods and objects are not available inside the child class. So are we clear until this, everyone? Okay. One more use case of doing something like this, calling the child class constructor for creating the parent class object, is because of this. I can have two different implementations of same employee class here. So I can override two different times, two different ways. I can even have one more class of let's say sales employee. I can give a new implementation to this print employee details method there. So it's kind of giving new implementations for the same employee class by overriding its methods. So in that way, we can achieve something called dynamic binding, which is called runtime polymorphism. So whatever we do is overriding is runtime polymorphism, right? So what is static polymorphism example? Overloading, which we saw in the previous sessions, right? Overloading is a typical example of static polymorphism, and this overriding is typical example of runtime polymorphism. Why it's called runtime? Because this method call, this print employee method call is decided at the runtime only, right? Which method to call is decided at the runtime. For example, if we try to go to this declaration, it will go to this declaration which is available in the employee class only, not inside the marketing employee or engineering employee class, because the method called is not something which is happening in the compile time. In the compile time, compiler only knows hey, this method is present only in the employee class, but in the runtime only JVM decides I have to run this method which is there in the engineering employee or marketing employee class. So only it's called runtime polymorphism or dynamic binding. Okay, I hope I was clear until now. We'll wrap up the session with this today. We'll continue some things tomorrow. So, any doubts until now? Everyone, can you post your response in the chat? What about others? Okay, then I'll wrap up this session. Thank you, everyone. We'll share the recording within evening. Right, we'll meet tomorrow.